He wanted a prenup. Because he was hiding a child. She found out at the ceremony. The ballroom wasn't breathing. Gold lights flickered above rows of silent guests, and every pair of eyes was locked on the bride, a bride frozen at the altar, holding a legal envelope that didn't belong in a wedding. Not today. Not like this. Her fingers trembled so hard the papers inside rattled. And, trust me, if you were standing there, you would have felt the air split in half. Anna looked up at her groom, the man she thought she knew, and for the first time since she walked down that aisle, she stepped back. Just one small step, but enough to make the crowd gasp. Because the envelope she held wasn't a love letter. It wasn't vows. It wasn't a message from a nervous relative. It was a prenup. But not the one he had shown her. Not the one they had discussed. This one had an extra page. A page he had kept hidden. A page he never thought she'd see. And she wouldn't have, not if the woman in the second row hadn't suddenly stood up, pale and shaking, whispering, "Please. Anna, you need to read all of it." Anna's throat tightened. Her heart hammered. Her veil brushed the floor as she lifted the final sheet, the one marked with her groom's signature, and someone else's. A child's name. A date. A custody clause. And right then, the man who claimed he had no past worth mentioning lost every drop of color in his face. Honestly, she stayed calmer than I ever could. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "Whose child is this?" He didn't answer. Because he couldn't. Because the truth was sitting in the audience, staring back at her with the same blue eyes he tried so hard to hide. A chair scraped loudly. Someone gasped. And the groom took one desperate step toward her. She stepped away. The bouquet slipped from her hands and hit the marble with a soft, tragic thud. But to understand how she ended up here, we need to go back to the beginning. Before the prenup, before the ceremony froze mid-breath, Anna Parker was just a woman trying to build a quiet life. She ran a small home decor shop on Maple Street, the kind that smelled like linen and warm vanilla, where customers came in just to exhale. It suited her, soft edges, simple days, no sharp corners. Then Thomas Reed walked in. He didn't sweep her off her feet. That's not how it happened. He eased into her life the way a warm hand settles on your back, steady, reassuring, the sort of presence you don't question until much later. He was attentive, charming in a polished way, the kind of man who made you feel chosen just by listening. I remember Anna telling me once that he made the world feel lighter. Now that I look back, I can't help thinking, sometimes light comes from things burning. One afternoon, while Anna was arranging candles on a shelf, her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, wiping dust off her fingers, and whispered a small laugh. Thomas had written, "Dinner tonight? I want to talk about something important." She murmured, "Important how?" before sending the question, still smiling to herself. His reply came fast, "Good. I promise." She shook her head, amused. "You're dramatic," she whispered under her breath, unaware that tiny knots of anxiety were already forming, the kind that only make sense in hindsight. That evening, he took her to a rooftop restaurant overlooking the city. The wind played with her hair while he held her hand across the table. He told her she made life feel easy. Anna blushed at that, teasing that he was talking like a man with a ring in his pocket. He gave her that slow, warm smile she used to adore and simply said, "One day." It should have been a perfect moment. But even then, something about the way he looked away lingered in the air longer than it should have. A hesitation. A shadow. As if part of him was measuring how much truth he could afford to let her see. A few weeks later, he stopped by her shop again, leaning against the counter while she wrapped a gift for a customer. Out of nowhere, he asked if she ever thought about the future, marriage, children, the whole picture. Anna laughed quietly, saying, "Of course I do. But only with someone honest enough to build it with me." He froze for half a second. Just half. Then he smiled and changed the subject. Funny how the smallest pauses become deafening once you know what they meant. A month later, he proposed. Classic restaurant. Perfect timing. Everyone clapped. Anna said yes, believing she was stepping into a life built on love. She had no idea she was stepping into a story that had started long before she entered it. And one Thomas never intended to tell her. The first red flag didn't arrive like a warning. It slipped in quietly, the way cracks appear under fresh paint. Anna was still floating on the idea of being engaged, still replaying the moment Thomas knelt down in the middle of the restaurant. She told everyone it felt right. And because she said it with that soft smile of hers, most people believed her. But families see things. It started during dinner with her parents. Thomas had insisted on choosing the restaurant, somewhere expensive, dim, the kind of place where everyone spoke softly. He liked environments he could control. Anna never noticed, she just called it taste. Her mother noticed. Halfway through the meal, Anna was telling a story about a difficult client at her shop. She laughed as she spoke, waving her hand in the air the way she always did. And right in the middle of her sentence, Thomas rested his hand on her knee and said quietly, "Love, that's not how it happened." Anna blinked. "I think it is." He gave a small smile. "You always mix up the details." "It's fine." And he turned back to her parents, as if nothing strange had happened. As if rewriting her memory was a perfectly natural part of the evening. Her mother paused with her fork halfway to her mouth. I remember Anna telling me this later, saying, "I thought Mom was just being overprotective. Turns out she was being observant." Another flag showed up at Anna's shop a few days later. Thomas dropped by unannounced, something he did more often after the engagement. He watched her talk to a regular customer, an older man who came in for candles every month. When the man left, Thomas slid closer, lowering his voice. "You're a little too friendly sometimes." Anna looked at him confused. "He buys the same candle every month. I know his name, that's all." He didn't raise his voice, didn't accuse her of anything dramatic. That wasn't Thomas's style. He simply said, "I'm just saying, people talk." Then he kissed her forehead, dismissing her discomfort before she could name it. The narradora mim so consegue pensa, some warnings don't come with sirens, they come wrapped in affection, so carefully you almost think the person hurting you. The pressure grew stronger when Thomas introduced her to his mother. A woman polished like a museum piece, hair perfectly set, smile tight enough to snap. She looked Anna up and down, not rudely, just clinically. "Your shop is cute," she said. "Thomas needs stability, dear. Something that will grow with him." Anna forced a small smile and replied, "It's growing." His mother tilted her head. "Well, as long as it doesn't distract you from being a proper wife." The words hung in the air, sour and sweet at the same time. Anna swallowed hard. She wanted to defend herself, but Thomas placed a hand on her back and whispered, "She doesn't mean anything by it." Of course she did. Everyone heard it. Everyone felt it. Later that night, while Anna was brushing her hair before bed, Thomas leaned against the doorway and said lightly, "Mom just wants what's best. She's protective." Anna met his eyes in the mirror. "It sounded like she doesn't think I'm enough." He stepped forward, kissed her shoulder, and murmured, "Then prove her wrong." A sentence gentle enough to sound like encouragement, but sharp enough to plant a seed of doubt she would carry for months. And that's the thing about early red flags, they don't scream. They whisper. And Anna had grown very good at ignoring whispers. The first time the word prenup appeared, it didn't land like a bomb. It slipped in quietly, like a shadow stretching across the idea of their future. Anna was in the kitchen of her small apartment, barefoot on the cool tile, trying to frost cupcakes for a community event the next morning. Thomas sat at the counter, scrolling through something intensely on his phone. His jaw was tighter than usual. "Anna," he said without looking up, "we should sign a prenup." The spatula slipped from her hand and hit the bowl with a dull sound. "A prenup," she repeated, trying to sound calm. "Why?" He finally lifted his eyes. "It's standard. Practical. My family believes in being responsible." She frowned. "But neither of us is rich." Thomas laughed lightly, as if she'd said something adorable. "It's not about being rich. It's about being prepared. You own your shop. I have assets you don't know about yet. It's better for both of us." And there it was, the first real shift. The moment Anna realized he had whole pieces of his life she'd never seen, never heard, never been invited into. She tried to laugh it off. "You could have mentioned these assets some other time." He kissed her cheek. That's why I'm protecting us. But he wasn't protecting them. He was protecting himself. And if you watch closely, this is where the match gets struck small, quiet, but soon enough it's going to set the entire story on fire. A few days later, Anna confided in her best friend, Marissa, over coffee. Marissa set her mug down a little too hard after hearing the news. He asked for a prenup? Out of nowhere? That's sudden. Anna shrugged. His family is traditional. Maybe this is normal for them. Marissa raised an eyebrow. Is it normal for you? Anna hesitated. I mean, it doesn't feel good. But he said it's just precaution. Marissa didn't answer right away. She just watched Anna carefully, the way people do when they know you're not being completely honest with yourself. The next tension point arrived on a Sunday morning, soft and strange. Anna was picking up laundry from the bedroom floor when she found a small receipt tucked beneath the dresser, a crumpled slip from a law office downtown. She stared at it for several seconds. A date from 2 months before. His signature. Thomas, she called, walking toward the living room. Did you go to a lawyer before you even proposed? His reaction was instant, too quick, too sharp. He snatched the receipt from her hand, forced a laugh and said, That? Nothing. I was updating documents. You're reading too much into it. I'm just asking, she said quietly. His smile vanished. I said it's nothing. The silence that followed was heavy enough to bend the walls. If that's not a sign, I don't know what is. Another piece of the conflict snapped into place during dinner with his family. His mother sipped her wine delicately before saying, Anna dear, the prenup should be signed well before the wedding. It's unbecoming to leave these things until the last minute. Anna forced a polite smile. I assume Thomas will show it to me soon. His mother's eyebrow twitched. He hasn't? My goodness. I told him not to delay. Thomas's fork froze midair. Anna's stomach dropped. Right there, in that tiny gesture, a fork suspended above a plate, something cracked open. He hadn't shown her anything because there was something inside he didn't want her to see. His mother noticed his stiff shoulders and quickly added, Well, I'm sure he'll take care of it. Dinner continued, but the atmosphere was unmistakably wrong. You can always tell when a secret enters the room, people stop breathing the same way. And then, the biggest shift of all. Thomas suddenly became desperate to finalize the prenup. Calls, texts, reminders. It's important, Anna, he insisted one night, pacing her living room. Just sign it so we can move forward. She sat on the edge of the couch, fingers twisted together in her lap, trying to steady her breathing. Thomas, I'm not refusing, she said quietly. I'm just waiting to actually see it. That simple sentence, calm, reasonable, almost painfully gentle, made him pause mid-step. For a moment, his expression flickered. Something like frustration or fear or both. Then he forced a smile that didn't touch his eyes. You will, he said. I told you, the lawyer's still finalizing details. Anna nodded, though something inside her shifted uneasily. But the next day, instead of bringing the document, Thomas sent another text. Still not ready. Soon. And then another the day after. Don't stress about it. Just trust me. Trust me. 2 words that sound comforting when they're true. And suffocating when they're not. By the end of the week, the reminders became almost daily, little taps on her phone that felt less like updates and more like pressure. We need to sign. You're making this harder than it needs to be. My parents are waiting. Anna read each message with a growing heaviness in her chest. It wasn't the prenup itself that unsettled her, it was everything around it. The delay. The secrecy. The urgency without transparency. It felt like trying to walk through a room with the lights off, every step cautious, every shadow suspicious. And even though Anna didn't have proof yet, not the kind that fits neatly in a folder, she felt it. A tension in his voice. A tightness in his movements. A layer of something unsaid sitting between them like fog. The kind of silence that warns you long before the truth arrives. And that's where she stood. Not yet aware of the lie itself. But close enough to feel its outline. Close enough to know that something was coming. And it wasn't love. It happened during what should have been the simplest part of the wedding prep, the financial meeting with the venue. A formality. A quick signature. Nothing emotional, nothing dramatic. That's what Anna told herself as she walked in holding her planner against her chest like a shield. But from the moment Thomas arrived, something felt off. He didn't greet her, didn't kiss her cheek, didn't even look at her the way he usually did when other people were watching. He was irritated, short-tempered, like her presence alone was an inconvenience. The coordinator handed Anna a folder with the final invoice. She thanked her politely, flipping through the pages: linen choices, bar fees, head counts. Everything looked exactly as planned. Until Thomas leaned over her shoulder and said, "Give me that." The coordinator blinked, startled. Anna froze. "Thomas, I'm just—" "You're doing it wrong," he snapped, pulling the folder from her hands so sharply the papers inside slid halfway out. A couple sitting across the lobby turned their heads. Anna felt heat crawl up her neck. She tried to keep her voice steady. "I was just checking the totals." "Relax." Thomas's jaw tightened. He held the folder against his chest like he was guarding something inside it. "Relax," he muttered. "If I left things to you, this wedding would fall apart." The words hit her harder than she expected, especially because he said them loudly enough for everyone nearby to hear. A silence settled between them, heavy, humiliating. The kind that makes the air feel too thick to swallow. The coordinator cleared her throat gently, trying to soften the moment. "Perhaps you both could look together?" Thomas forced a smile. "Of course. But I handle the financial parts." She gets overwhelmed. Anna's breath caught. Overwhelmed? This was the first time she'd heard him describe her that way. And it wasn't the last. Things escalated 2 days later, at a small family dinner in her parents' backyard, lanterns hanging between trees, soft music playing, the kind of evening meant to ease wedding stress. Anna had just served dessert when Thomas made a comment that shifted everything. Her father complimented her homemade pie. Anna laughed and joked, "Don't give me too much credit, I burned the first one." And Thomas, without missing a beat, said, "She burns a lot of things lately." The table went silent. Anna looked at him, stunned. "Why would you say that?" He shrugged. "It's true. No need to act sensitive." Sensitive. There it was again, the new label he'd started using. Her mother's eyes narrowed. Her father's smile faded. Everyone felt the weight of the moment, except Thomas, who kept eating as if nothing had happened. Anna excused herself, walking into the kitchen with trembling hands. She tried to breathe, to shake it off, to tell herself he didn't mean it. But when Thomas followed her inside, the mask slipped even further. He closed the door quietly and said, "Can you not make everything dramatic? You embarrass me out there." Anna stared at him, the words catching in her throat. "I embarrassed you? You humiliated me in front of my parents." He stepped closer, lowering his voice into something colder than she'd ever heard. "You should be grateful I'm patient with you." A shiver ran through her. For a moment, she didn't recognize the man standing in her parents' kitchen. Then he added, "If you can't handle simple responsibilities, maybe we need to rethink some things." A threat. Soft, disguised, but unmistakable. Anna felt something inside her collapse, a flutter, a crack, a realization she wasn't ready to name. When they returned to the table, she kept her head down. Her father placed a hand on her shoulder. Thomas pretended not to notice. "And the narrator in me can tell you this with certainty. Humiliation doesn't always sound like shouting. Sometimes it whispers. You're losing yourself and you don't even see it yet." After the dinner at her parents' house, Anna moved through the next few days like someone walking underwater, slow, heavy, unsure where the surface was. And Thomas, well, he acted as if nothing unusual had happened. He always did. That was part of the pattern she hadn't learned to recognize yet. When people lose themselves quietly, they rarely notice the unraveling until someone else points to the loose thread. For Anna, that someone was Marissa. She didn't plan to talk. She just showed up at Marissa's apartment to drop something off, but the moment the door opened, her eyes gave everything away. Marissa stepped aside without a word and let her in. Some friendships don't need explanations, they hear what your silence is saying. Anna sat on the couch, hands pressed between her knees. She tried to smile, one of those brittle smiles that looks fine from far away but collapses the moment someone gets close. Marissa didn't push. She simply sat beside her and waited. That's all it took. Finally, Anna let out a breath that sounded more like a confession. I think I did something wrong, she whispered. Marissa's head turned slowly. What do you mean? Anna rubbed her eyes with the sleeve of her sweater. He was upset. I made him look bad. I shouldn't have reacted. And here's where a narrator like me wants to press pause and put a finger on the screen. That sentence, I made him look bad, is one people say when they've been carrying someone else's blame a little too long. Marissa didn't argue with her. She didn't lecture. She just placed a warm hand on Anna's back and said quietly, "Tell me what happened." So Anna did. Not the whole story. She wasn't ready for that, but pieces. Small ones. The kind that slip out when someone feels safe. When she finished, Marissa exhaled softly. Anna, none of what you described is normal. Anna blinked, as if she genuinely hadn't considered that possibility. He's stressed, she murmured, still trying to defend him out of habit. The wedding. No, Marissa said gently. This isn't stress. This is control. The room went very still. Anna didn't argue. She just sat there with her hands clenched together, like she was holding something fragile that might break if she moved too fast. Marissa stood and returned a moment later with tea and a blanket. You don't have to figure it out today, she said. Just don't do it alone. And that's the thing about allies, they don't rescue you. They don't rewrite your story. They simply hand you a moment of quiet, a place to breathe, a reminder that you still have choices. Anna stayed there until the sky outside turned violet. She didn't promise she would leave Thomas. She didn't admit anything out loud. But she walked out of Marissa's apartment with something she didn't have when she walked in. The first hint that maybe, just maybe, her fear wasn't imagination. And that the way he treated her wasn't love wearing a tired disguise. Sometimes refuge isn't a place. It's the first person brave enough to say, "You're not crazy. I see it too." The prenup didn't come right away. He kept delaying it, promising it was almost ready, blaming lawyers, blaming timing, blaming everything except the truth sitting quietly behind his eyes. And Anna, still unsure of herself, kept giving him the benefit of every doubt. But something inside her had shifted. A quiet voice she had pushed down for months finally started whispering again. The turning point happened on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. The kind of rain that makes the whole world feel blurry, like life is trying to wash something clean. Anna was in her shop, checking inventory, when an unfamiliar number called her. She almost ignored it. But something, call it intuition, call it exhaustion, made her answer. Anna Parker, a woman said, her voice steady but soft. My name is Claire. Anna paused. Do I know you? Not yet, the woman replied. But you need to. And I swear, if you had been standing in that shop that day, you would have seen the exact moment Anna's spine straightened, not in fear, but in recognition. Some truths announce themselves before they're spoken. Claire didn't explain much. She just asked if Anna could meet her at a small cafe near the courthouse. Anna hesitated, torn between caution and curiosity. Thomas would hate this. Which, ironically, was part of the reason she went. The cafe was nearly empty, filled with the smell of espresso and wet umbrellas. Claire sat in a corner booth, a slim folder resting on the table in front of her. Anna approached slowly, almost apologetically. Claire stood to greet her, but there was a nervousness in her smile, the kind of expression people wear when they're about to ruin someone's world in order to save them. I'm sorry to meet you like this, Claire said softly, motioning for Anna to sit. Anna slid into the booth, her fingertips cold against the tabletop. Why did you call me? Claire hesitated. Then she pushed the folder toward her. Because you deserve to know who you're marrying. Anna stared at it, at the plain, unassuming folder that suddenly felt heavier than the entire wedding. Claire continued carefully, I used to work for Thomas's family. Not directly for him, but close enough to see things he didn't mean for others to see. Anna didn't say anything. Her throat felt too tight for words. Claire opened the folder herself, revealing photocopies, legal letters, and one document with a name she didn't recognize, a woman's name, followed by a child's. A custody filing. Months old. Signed by Thomas. Anna felt her breath leave in one sharp exhale. Is this real? Claire nodded. Every page. Anna forced herself to look again. There was no denying it, the signature, the dates, the lawyer's stamp. All the pieces Thomas had hidden were laid out here, quiet and undeniable. Claire reached across the table gently. You need to know this. Nothing is wrong with you. Those words hit harder than the documents. Harder than any revelation. You've been feeling confused, doubting yourself, apologizing for things that aren't your fault. That's not you. That's what happens when someone twists the truth long enough. Anna's eyes filled, but she didn't cry. Not here. Not yet. She just let the words settle, heavy, painful, but clarifying. After a long silence, Anna whispered, "Why didn't anyone tell me?" Claire looked down. Because he's very good at making sure people stay quiet. But I couldn't watch him do this again. Again. A small word. A devastating one. Anna closed the folder with trembling hands. She didn't shout. She didn't storm out. She just said, voice barely audible, "Thank you." As she walked out into the rain, the world looked different, sharper, colder, more honest. And the narrator in me can tell you. This was the moment Anna stopped being confused and started seeing clearly. The weeks that followed didn't feel heroic. They weren't filled with loud decisions or dramatic exits. They felt quiet, like a long exhale after months of holding her breath. Anna didn't leave Thomas immediately. She needed space first, distance between the truth she'd uncovered and the life she'd been living. So she stayed with her parents, just for a few days, which quietly stretched into weeks. No one asked for explanations. They simply made room for her, the way people do when they've been waiting for you to come home. In the mornings, Anna walked. Not far, not fast, just enough to feel the air on her face and remember that she existed outside of someone else's expectations. She sometimes stopped at the small park near her childhood home, sitting on a bench with her hands tucked inside her sleeves. Healing doesn't look dramatic from the outside. It looks like a woman staring at trees, relearning how to be alone without feeling small. At the shop, her employees didn't ask questions either. They noticed the ring was gone, yes, replaced by a faint indentation on her skin, but they let her take her time. Anna threw herself into small tasks. Relabeling candles, reorganizing displays, repainting a shelf she'd been meaning to fix for months. There's something about creating order in a physical space when your emotional life feels like a storm. It gives your heart something to imitate. Sometimes, Marissa would stop by with coffee. They didn't talk about Thomas. Not then. They talked about little things, a new bakery opening down the street, a funny customer interaction, a plant Anna kept forgetting to water. It was ordinary, and that was exactly what Anna needed. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, moments of clarity began to slip in. Like the morning she caught her reflection in the shop window and didn't flinch. Or the night she sat on her parents' porch, wrapped in a blanket and realized she hadn't checked her phone in hours because she no longer felt watched. Or the day she opened the prenup again, not to cry this time, but to understand it. She didn't rush. Didn't make any grand declarations. She simply let the truth settle in its rightful place, not as a threat, but as information. And once she accepted it, something inside her shifted. One afternoon, she sat across from a lawyer, a quiet woman with soft eyes who listened more than she spoke. When Anna explained everything, the lawyer nodded gently. "You're doing the right thing," she said. And Anna believed her. That's how the rebuilding began. With small steps, quiet mornings, unremarkable routines that stitched her back together in ways she didn't expect. And if you'd asked her then, she would have told you she wasn't healing. But anyone watching could see it. The way a wilted flower starts to lift again when the sun finds it. The strange thing about healing is that it rarely announces when it's happening. It comes disguised in routines, in strangers, in small coincidences that don't feel important until later. For Anna, it came in the form of a man who walked into her shop one quiet afternoon looking for a housewarming gift. She didn't know him. Had never seen him in town. He was just another customer, the kind who wandered between shelves with the slow patience of someone who wasn't in a hurry to be anywhere else. He introduced himself as Mark, a contractor who'd recently moved to the area. His voice was warm but soft, the kind of tone that doesn't rush people. When he asked for help choosing a scent, Anna didn't think much of it. She guided him through options the same way she did with countless customers. But there was something different in the way he listened. Not eagerly, not flirtatiously, just attentively. Like he respected the space she took up. He picked a candle she rarely sold and said with a small smile, "This one feels peaceful." "I think that's what a home should smell like." Anna didn't respond right away. Peaceful. The word hit her more deeply than it should have. When he left, Marissa, who happened to be restocking shelves nearby, raised an eyebrow. "You okay?" she asked. Anna nodded, though she wasn't entirely sure why her chest felt warm in a way that wasn't painful. And the narrator in me can tell you, it wasn't attraction. Not yet. It was just the unfamiliar sensation of being spoken to without edges. Weeks passed. Mark came back, not often, not predictably, but naturally. Sometimes for a gift, sometimes for paint samples, sometimes simply because he happened to be nearby. At least that's what he claimed. Anna never asked. She didn't need answers right away. Their conversations stayed simple. Weather, business, the town's terrible parking situation. But each time he visited, Anna felt a little more steady. Not excited. Not nervous. Just present. One afternoon, as she wrapped a set of coasters he'd chosen, her hands trembled, not from fear, but from a quiet realization she hadn't expected. She had gone an entire day without thinking about Thomas. She handed him the bag, and Mark noticed the distant look in her eyes. "You don't have to explain," he said gently. And the fact that he didn't pry, didn't push, did something to her that months of reflection hadn't managed. He simply added, "Take your time," and left. No pressure. No expectation. No questions. Just space. The kind Thomas never allowed. Anna didn't tell her family or Marissa about Mark right away. Not because there was anything to hide, but because she finally understood that healing wasn't a performance. Some pieces were meant to grow in the quiet. She didn't label whatever this was. Didn't imagine a future. Didn't pretend she was ready for anything else. What she did notice, though, was undeniable. She laughed more. She breathed more deeply. She slept through the night. Sometimes second chances don't look like fireworks or grand confessions. Sometimes they look like a man who buys the same candle every month because it gives him an excuse to step into a shop where someone is learning how to trust again. And Anna, carefully, slowly, began to believe she might deserve something gentler than survival. The turning point didn't come with a dramatic announcement. It came as an email. Anna had just opened her shop for the morning, flipping the lights on one section at a time, when the notification chimed on her phone. She almost ignored it. Most emails at that hour were invoices or shipping delays, but something in the subject line caught her eye. Opportunity for collaboration. She tapped it open, expecting something small. Instead, she found a message from a regional home design magazine, one she used to buy religiously before life became too heavy to enjoy simple pleasures. The editor had visited her shop quietly 2 weeks earlier, loved her product line, and wanted to feature her boutique in a spread about local artisans. They were planning a full page, with photos, and an interview. Anna read the email twice, then once more just to make sure it wasn't a mistake. She pressed her hand to her chest, feeling her heartbeat flutter with something she hadn't felt in months. Pride. Not borrowed from someone else. Not dependent on approval. Her own. When she told Marissa later that day, her friend threw her arms around her and whispered, "See, good things still find you." And the narrator in me can tell you, that moment mattered more than Anna admitted. Not because of the magazine, but because she realized she hadn't disappeared inside the storm. She was still here. Still talented. Still visible. The feature was a success. Customers started coming in with the magazine folded open to her page, pointing to photos of her shelves and saying, "I didn't know you made all this yourself." Sales grew. Her confidence grew with them. Soon after, a local event planner asked if she would create custom gift sets for a corporate gala. Anna stayed up late assembling boxes with the same care she used to pour into her shop when she first opened it. Her father watched her one night, leaning against the kitchen doorway while she tied ribbon after ribbon. "You look happy," he said softly. Anna paused mid-tie, realizing he was right. Not manic. Not forced. Just steady. She whispered, I didn't think I would feel like myself again. Her father smiled in that warm, quiet way parents smile when they've been waiting to see their child return to themselves. You didn't come back, he told her. You grew. Word spread. Her shop was featured in a small online directory. Then a local influencer did a segment on her candles. People started recognizing her by name, not as someone's fiancée, not as someone's almost wife, but as the owner of Maple and Hearth, the little boutique that smelled like home. The vindication didn't arrive with applause or grand gestures. It arrived in the subtle but unmistakable shift of how people looked at her and how she looked at herself. For the first time in a long time, Anna didn't feel small. She didn't feel apologetic. She didn't feel like a woman trying to survive someone else's shadow. She felt like herself. And if you've ever lost that, you know how extraordinary it is to find it again. While Anna's life slowly found its rhythm again, the same couldn't be said about Thomas. His unraveling didn't happen in a blaze of drama, it came in quiet pieces, the same way his control once crept into her life. These things have a way of flipping themselves. The first whisper came from Marissa, who heard it from someone who worked downtown. Thomas had been missing work. Not taking time off. Missing. Unannounced. Unexplained. It wasn't long before Anna's father mentioned, almost reluctantly, that he'd seen Thomas's mother at the grocery store. She looked thinner. Tense. Holding her purse the way people do when life starts slipping between their fingers. She didn't even say hello, he said. Walked right past me. The Naradora and Mintem K. Dizzer, silence from certain people speaks louder than apologies ever could. A week later, Claire reached out again, just to check on Anna. Their conversation was brief, but at the end, Claire said quietly, He's not doing well. Anna didn't ask for details. She wasn't looking for misery to soothe her past. But Claire explained anyway, gently, carefully. There are more custody complications, she said. And the firm he worked for suspended him. They're reviewing some financial inconsistencies. Anna closed her eyes for a moment. Not in satisfaction, but in recognition. These weren't surprises. They were consequences. Claire added softly, I think he believed everything would stay hidden forever. That was the part that lingered. Not the downfall, but the idea of someone living so deeply inside their own illusions they're shocked when reality finally knocks. News traveled quietly in small towns. Someone mentioned seeing Thomas arguing with his father in the parking lot of an upscale restaurant, voices low, shoulders tight, frustration bleeding through their posture. Someone else said his mother left early during a social event, face pale, eyes red, as if shielding herself from whispers she couldn't control anymore. Anna heard these things the way one hears distant thunder present, but far enough away not to shake her anymore. She didn't feed on it. She didn't dwell on it. But she noticed something important. For the first time since their split, his actions no longer felt like a reflection of her worth. His life was collapsing because of choices he made long before she ever wore his ring. People sometimes talk about justice as if it's a spectacle. But real justice, the quiet kind, is simply truth returning to its rightful place. One afternoon, as Anna was closing her shop, she saw Thomas across the street. Not up close, just a distant figure leaning against a car, shoulders hunched, hair unkempt in a way that would have horrified his mother. He didn't see her. He didn't look around. He just stood there, staring at the ground like a man who'd finally run out of empty promises to give. Anna didn't wave, didn't hide, didn't rush inside the shop. She simply stood there for a second, watching a life that no longer touched hers. Then she locked the door, turned off the lights, and went home, not lighter, not triumphant, just free. And freedom, once tasted, doesn't leave room for looking back. The night of the gala arrived with a level of elegance Anna hadn't touched in months. Soft gold light spilled through the venue's tall windows, and the air hummed with the kind of polite laughter that only happens at expensive events. Her display of curated gift boxes stood near the entrance, each one tied with her signature ribbon, the same shade of linen she used when she first opened her shop. Anna smoothed the fabric of her navy dress, simple, elegant, intentionally understated. She wasn't here to be seen. She was here because she'd earned a place in this room. and that alone felt like a victory. People approached her table with warm smiles, complimenting her work, asking about her shop, praising the magazine feature. She felt grounded, steady, fully present in a way she hadn't been in a very long time. If this were any other story, the night might have stayed beautiful. But life doesn't tie its threads so neatly. Because halfway through the event, as Anna spoke with the event coordinator, a familiar stillness spread across the crowd, the kind that ripples before anyone knows why. And there he was, Thomas, standing near the entrance, wearing a suit that fit him too well for a man whose life was falling apart. His shoulders were rigid, his eyes scanning the room until they found her. Anna's breath caught for half a second, not in fear, not in longing, but in recognition. A reminder of the storm she survived. He walked toward her. Not quickly, not confidently, just purposefully. Like a man rehearsing a version of himself he no longer had full control over. The narradora em mim precisa dizer. Every big story has one moment where the past walks into the room uninvited. This was it. Anna, he said when he reached her, his voice low, strained, almost fragile. She didn't step back, didn't fold. She kept her hands gently on the edge of her display table, grounded. Thomas, she replied, her tone calm enough to make his own falter. His gaze swept over her work, her booth, the people who kept moving past them with warm greetings and quiet admiration. You're doing well, he said, as if the words physically scraped his throat on the way out. She nodded. I am. The simplicity of her answer unsettled him. He looked down, then around, then back at her, a man trying to find footing in a room that wasn't built for him. Can we talk? He asked. Somewhere private? Anna lifted her chin slightly. No. If you have something to say, you can say it here. A few people nearby slowed down, sensing the tension without understanding it. Not nosy, just curious the way humans are when emotion brushes the air. Thomas's jaw tightened. He hadn't expected strength. Not like this. I never meant to hurt you, he whispered. Anna didn't answer immediately. She let the words hang in the space between them, the way someone examines a piece of fabric for authenticity. When she finally spoke, her voice was steady. You didn't hurt me by accident, Thomas. You hurt me because it was convenient. He swallowed hard. The mask cracked for the first time publicly. His eyes glistened, and he looked away, rubbing the back of his neck. I made mistakes, he murmured. Mistakes, she repeated softly, don't require secret children and lawyers. The reaction around them was subtle but unmistakable, a shifting of weight, a held breath, a few exchanged glances. Not dramatic gossip, just awareness. A truth touching oxygen for the first time. Thomas closed his eyes briefly, pained. I didn't know how to tell you. Then you shouldn't have proposed, she replied. Simple. Unavoidable. True. And then, exactly like the cold open, it happened. From across the room, a woman stood, the same woman who had spoken up at the ceremony. Her presence tonight wasn't planned by Anna, nor desired by Thomas. Life simply has a way of bringing people into the same rooms when truth is ready to rise again. She walked slowly toward them, her expression tight, her hands clasped together. And Thomas's shoulders sank as if the ground beneath him gave out. She stopped right beside Anna. Do you want me to leave? She asked softly. Anna shook her head. No. Stay. That answer alone shifted the entire energy of the room. Thomas stared at both of them, the past he tried to rewrite, and the truth he tried to bury, now standing shoulder to shoulder. A single thought washed over his face. There was no version of this moment where he won. The woman who approached them, Claire, didn't raise her voice. She didn't accuse. She didn't even look angry. And somehow, that made the moment feel even heavier. People nearby pretended to focus on their conversations, but their eyes drifted. Not to pry, not to gossip, just because tension has a gravitational pull, and everyone can feel when truth is about to break the surface. Claire folded her hands in front of her and looked at Anna with a softness that contrasted painfully with the rigid discomfort on Thomas's face. I'm sorry we're meeting again like this, she said quietly. Anna nodded. It's all right. Thomas looked between them, panic flickering behind his eyes. "Claire, please don't." But she lifted a hand, silencing him with a calmness that didn't match his desperation. "I'm not here to embarrass you," she said. "I just think Anna deserves clarity. Real clarity. Not the pieces you let her see." The narrator mim precise a dizzer. Nothing travels faster through a crowd than a single sentence spoken with absolute honesty. A hush moved through the surrounding tables. Thomas exhaled sharply. "This isn't the place." "It's exactly the place," Claire replied. "Because she almost stood in front of a room like this one and married you without knowing the truth." Anna didn't flinch. Her eyes stayed steady, fixed on Claire, waiting, not afraid, not small, but ready. For the first time, Thomas seemed to realize he'd lost control of the narrative he spent months crafting. His voice cracked as he tried again. "Claire, don't do this." She looked at him with a sadness that suggested she'd spent too long watching him choose lies over courage. And then she turned to Anna. "It wasn't just a prenup he hid," she said. "It was a child." The air left the room. A glass clinked somewhere in the distance, the sound oddly sharp in the sudden stillness. Anna's heartbeat thudded softly in her ears, but her voice came out even. "I know." Claire took a breath. "You know part of it. But you don't know everything." Thomas closed his eyes. "Please stop." But this wasn't his moment anymore. Claire continued. "Thomas didn't just hide the child. He hid the custody dispute. He hid the agreement he made with the mother. And he hid the fact that the prenup wasn't to protect you, it was to protect himself from financial responsibility." A quiet shock rippled across the room like a current. Not screaming. Not chaos. Just the collective sound of people understanding more than they meant to hear. Anna blinked once, slowly, absorbing the words, letting them settle. "Why?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Thomas's shoulders collapsed inward, his voice thin. "I didn't want you to leave." Anna stared at him, truly stared, as if finally seeing the full picture. "You didn't want me to leave," she repeated softly, "so you just took away my choice?" He looked down. And that silence, the one where a guilty person has no defense left, was louder than any confession he could have made. Claire stepped back slightly, giving Anna space. Everyone seemed to do the same, even those who didn't know they were part of this moment. Anna wasn't crying. She wasn't shaking. She simply stood there with a kind of quiet dignity no one could take from her anymore. She turned to Claire. "Thank you for telling me the truth." Claire's eyes softened. "You deserved it from the beginning." Then Anna looked at Thomas, the man she almost married. "You didn't just lie to me," she said gently. "You built a life on lies and expected me to fit into it." Thomas lifted his head, eyes wet, voice broken. "I loved you." Anna exhaled, a slow, tired breath that carried months of hurt. "You loved the version of me who didn't know better." There it was. The line that ended everything. Not harsh. Not dramatic. But final. And the entire room felt it. The moment the truth settled, the gala didn't explode into chaos. It didn't need to. People simply stepped aside, giving Anna the space her calmness demanded. She walked to the balcony quietly, as if air suddenly weighed more indoors. Outside, the night was cool. The city lights flickered below, distant and quiet, and Anna finally allowed herself to breathe, really breathe, without having to brace for impact. For months, she'd imagined this moment as something dramatic, loud, shaking. But now that it was here, it felt like something else entirely. Relief. Not the joyful kind. The tired kind, like setting down a weight she'd carried too long. She leaned against the railing, letting the breeze brush her hair back. Her hands trembled only once, and even then, she steadied herself with a slow exhale. She didn't hear the door open, but she felt someone step onto the balcony, a presence calm enough not to startle her. Mark. He didn't approach right away. He kept a respectful distance, giving her a moment to register he was there. "Do you want to be alone?" he asked softly. Anna shook her head. "No. You can stay." He moved closer, but not too close, just enough so she didn't feel isolated in the vastness of the night. Neither of them spoke for a while. Mark didn't ask questions. Didn't offer advice. Didn't try to fill the silence with comforting cliches. Sometimes, the kindest thing someone can do is simply stand beside you until the noise in your mind quiets. After some time, Anna said quietly, "I thought I'd feel angry." Mark nodded, not pushing her to continue. "But I don't," she whispered. "I just feel done." Mark looked at her with that steady, grounded warmth that had become familiar. "That sounds like clarity, not anger." Anna let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. "Maybe?" Her voice cracked slightly, but she didn't hide it. Mark leaned his forearms on the railing, giving her space to compose herself without staring. "For what it's worth," he said gently, "you handled all of that with more grace than most people I've ever met." Anna smiled, a small, tired curve of her lips, but genuine. "Thank you," she whispered. A simple thank you, but the kind that carries weight. Inside, Thomas remained where she had left him. No one approached him. No one comforted him. Not out of cruelty, but because some truths isolate us by nature. He sat alone at a table, shoulders slumped, staring at his hands like they no longer belonged to him. The man who once commanded rooms now looked small. His mother stood at a distance, watching him with a mixture of worry and resignation, the quiet realization that some consequences can't be softened by family influence. But Anna didn't go back inside. She didn't need one last word, one final strike, one dramatic exit. Her closure wasn't in what he could say. It was in what she no longer felt compelled to carry. When she and Mark finally left the balcony and headed for the exit, she paused at the doorway, feeling a final wave of release wash over her. Mark noticed the subtle shift in her posture and waited. "Ready?" he asked. She nodded. Not bravely. Not dramatically. But with the quiet certainty of someone stepping away from a story that no longer belonged to them. And for the first time, it didn't feel like running. It felt like choosing. In the end, Anna didn't win because Thomas fell apart. She didn't win because the truth came out in public. She didn't win because someone finally said the things he'd kept buried. She won because she walked away with her dignity intact. Because she chose herself quietly, consistently, one hard moment at a time. Because she understood something that takes most people years to learn. When someone lies to protect their image, your silence doesn't protect your peace. Your truth does. Anna learned that love isn't built on pressure or fear or the hope that someone will change. It's built on clarity, on choice, on the freedom to be yourself without shrinking. And most importantly, healing doesn't mean forgetting what happened. It means no longer letting it define the ending. She didn't need revenge. She didn't need an audience. She only needed the courage to close a door that was already hurting her. And in doing so, she opened another one. A quieter one. A safer one. A better one. If you want more wedding drama, family secrets, and stories that make you whisper, "No way," hit subscribe. Bridal Confessions has many more secrets to tell.